Okay, so now how we're going to record these obligations in the accounting books and in the budget registries. Okay, so upon incurrence of obligation, or rather, all obligations incurred shall be through the issuance of obligation, request, and status, or ORS. So the requesting office shall prepare this document supported by valid claim documents like disbursement vouchers, payrolls, purchase job orders, itinerary of travel, etc. The head of the requesting office shall likewise certify the necessity and legality of the obligation and the validity of all the supporting documents. However, the head of the budget division shall certify the availability of the allotment. Okay, so aside from issuance of ORS, the obligation shall likewise be posted in the RAOD, or Registry of Allotments, Obligations, and Disbursements. Now, as the accounting entry, the following entries will be recorded in the accounting books. For the personnel services, after posting in ORS and RAOD PS, the journal entry will be as follows. So we have debit to salaries and wages for 350,000. Debit to personnel economic relief allowance or PERA, 120,000. And then credit to due to BIR for the withholding taxes amounting to 20,000. And the dues to other relevant government agencies such as the GSIS for 8,000, due to Pag-ibig 3,000, due to PhilHealth 2,000 pesos. The net amount that will be received by the employees and officers shall be credited to due to officers and employees for 437,000. So that is to recognize payable to officers and employees upon approval of payroll. Okay, now for the financial expenses. Similarly, we have to post it in ORS or Obligation Request Status and RAOD FE. The accounting entry will be as follows. So interest expense or bank charges, 5,000 pesos. And then due to bank, 5,000 pesos. So to recognize payable to bank for its services. Now, for the maintenance and other operating expenses, we have to post it similar to ORS and RAOD MOOE. The accounting entry will be as follows. For the office supplies, the entry will be like this. Office supplies inventory, 5,000 pesos. And then credit to accounts payable, 5,000 pesos. So to recognize the delivery of office supplies. So you can see there will be no entry for the issuances yet to the end users. Okay, so the corresponding entry to that effect will be debit to office supplies expense and then credit to office supplies inventory for 5,000 also. Yeah, so to record the issuance of office supplies to the end users. Now, for the 20,000 utility expenses, as you can see in the problem, 20,000 is paid in cash, and therefore the utilities expenses will not be recorded as payable because it will be directly paid for in cash. So we're going to record this entry or accounting entry in the disbursement. And nevertheless, okay, this will be posted in the ORS and RAOD MOOE. Okay, for the last object of expenditure, we have the capital outlays, 85,000 for office for office equipment. Okay, so after again posting in ORS and RAOD CO, the accounting entry will be as follows. So upon receipt of the office equipment, there will be a debit to office equipment for 85,000 and credit to accounts payable 85,000. Okay, now after incurrence of obligations, the obligations have not yet been paid. So there must be an authorization coming again from the DBM before the government agency will be able to disburse the funds. Okay, so for the Disbursement Authority, it is usually shown by the receipt of the notice of cash allocation. So in our example, entity A receives the following notice of cash allocations net of tax. And so for current year's appropriation, 600,000. And then for prior year's accounts payable, 200,000. So when you go back to the trial balance shown at the beginning of this slide, okay, we have accounts payable at the beginning of the period amounting to 220,000. So it may be paid within the current year. That's why it is part of your notice of cash allocations. Okay, so the receipt of notice of cash allocations shall be posted or recorded in the Registry of Allotments and Notice of Cash Allocations or RANCAN. Okay, as to the accounting entries, the following shall be made. So for current year's appropriation and prior year's accounts payable, it may be combined. So the debit will be to Cash Modified Disbursement System Regular or MDS, 800,000. So a total of 600 and 200,000 pesos. And then a credit to subsidy from national government. So to recognize the receipt of NCA from DBM. So now, accordingly, the government agency is now authorized to disburse funds or to pay its obligations. So the actual disbursements will be recorded as follows. So for the personnel services, upon the grant of cash advance, the entry will be debit to advances for payroll, 437,000. This pertains to the net amount or to the due to officers and employees as recorded in our previous slides. And then credit to cash MDS or Modified Disbursement System Regular for 437,000 pesos. And to recognize the grant of cash advance for payroll. Then upon liquidation of funds, so once it is distributed to the officers and employees, the accounting entry will be as follows. So first, we have due to officers and employees for 437,000 pesos and advances for payroll credit 437,000 pesos. So that is to recognize liquidation of payroll fund. Now, the disbursement shall be posted also in the ORS. So it will be updated. So the ORS will be updated that it will be shown that these obligations are now paid. And of course, the same will be posted to RAOD PS. Now for the financial expenses, we have the interest expense or the bank charges which are due to bank. So the accounting entry upon disbursement of fund will be as follows. So debit to due to bank for 5,000 and then credit cash in bank local currency current account. So as you can see here, we did not credit the cash modified disbursement system regular. No? And why is that? Because the financial expenses are normally minimal, and therefore it will be paid or it will be settled using the cash in bank of the government agency. And as you can see, another thing to note here is that we have credited this cash in bank local currency current account for 4,900 only. So what about the 100, the remaining 100? The remaining 100 will be recorded as a credit to due to BIR. So it represents the withholding tax or final withholding tax for the bank charges or interest expense. Okay. Similarly, this 100 pesos due to BIR or the final withholding tax does not necessarily reflect the provisions in the relevant tax law related to this interest expense or bank charges. Okay, this is only for simplification of the illustrative example. Okay, so that is to record the payment of bank charges. Similarly, the disbursement shall be posted in the ORS, so it will be updated as paid and shall likewise be recorded in the RAOD FE. Okay, for the third object of expenditure, maintenance and other operating expenses, so we're going to first pay or settle the accounts payable in the prior year. So this pertains to the purchase of office supplies last year, probably. So the entry will be debit to accounts payable for 220,000 and debit to due to BIR 20,000, credit cash MDS regular 200,000. So as you can see, there's also withholding tax 20,000. So to recognize payment of prior year's accounts payable. And then for the current year's accounts payable, due to the procurement of office supplies in the current year, so the entry will be as follows. So debit to accounts payable 5,000, credit to due to BAR 500, and then credit to cash MDS regular 4,500. So 500 is likewise related to withholding taxes. So to recognize payment of current year's accounts payable. So the disbursement shall be posted in the ORS, Obligation Request Status, and Registry of Allotment, Obligations, and Disbursements, MOOE. Now, for the other MOOE, we have the utility expenses. Okay, as mentioned before, the incurrence of utilities expenses will not be recorded as payable because it is directly paid for in cash. So if that happens, then as for the payment of utilities expenses, since it has not yet been recorded as expense and liabilities, respectively, okay, in the disbursement stage or phase, it will be recorded as such. So utilities expenses, it could be water or electricity for 20,000. And then due to BIR for the withholding tax, 1,500. And cash or MDS, cash MDS regular, 18,500. So to recognize payment of utilities expenses. So likewise, it shall be posted in the ORS. The ORS shall be updated and it will also be recorded in the Registry of Allotment, Obligations, and Disbursements, MOOE. Okay, for the capital outlay, so we have recognized office equipment upon receipt of this office equipment. Okay, and on account, so accounts payable also. So the payment will be as follows. So upon disbursement of fund, it will be debited to accounts payable for 85,000, but we're going to withhold some amount of taxes. So due to BRR 7,000 and then cash MDS regular 78,000. So to record payment of accounts payable. It will also be, the ORS will also be updated and it will be recorded in the RAOD CO. Now, what happens to the due to BIR? Okay, so based on our computations, the due to BIR will be or has a total amount of 49,100. So these are the results of the withholding taxes from these different object of expenditures. So we have 20,000 from personnel services, 100 for financial expenses, 20,500, 1,500 for MOOE, and lastly 7,000 for capital outlay. So this 49,100 shall be part of our appropriation, but as you can remember, the NCA that we have received is net of tax. Okay, so the constructive receipt of this withholding taxes, no, shall be recorded as follows. So debit to cash tax remittance advice, 49,100, and then debit to subsidy from national government, 49,100. So there is no physical transfer. It is only a constructive receipt of NCA for TRA. So to make it more efficient, so we don't have to disburse funds and then withhold it, after, and then deposit it again to the relevant government agencies. So there is only a constructive, there's only an entry for the constructive receipt, but there is no physical flow of money. Okay, and then once it will be constructively remitted to the BAR, the entry will be debited to, or will be debit to, due to BAR 49,100 and credit to cash tax remittance advice 49,100. So what about the posting to ORS? Yes, like similarly, the ORS shall be updated and it will also be posted in the relevant registry of allotment obligations and disbursements. Now, for the other amounts withheld, so we have here due to GSIS, Pag-ibig, PhilHealth. So all of these shall likewise be deposited to other government agencies. Yeah. So due to GSIS, 8,000, due to Pag-ibig, 3,000, due to PhilHealth, 2,000. So cash MDS regular, 13,000. To recognize remittance to GSIS, Pag-ibig, and PhilHealth. So as you can see here, there is an actual transfer of cash, to other relevant agencies. And then likewise, ORS will be updated and it will be posted to relevant RAOD or RAO.